Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. I'm Gian. As a representative of Group 1, I am pleased to welcome you back in this channel. For those of you who are just currently in this video, I would like to encourage to first watch the part 1 of our video, because on this part 2, we will be talking about another different small state. Or, you may also just continue watching this and later watch the first part. Now we are going for our main topic, which is Papua New Guinea. On this presentation, we will mainly cover about main information about Papua New Guinea, the history of Papua New Guinea, and why Papua New Guinea is considered as a small state, and lastly, their diplomacy during COVID-19. First one, it is one of the most culturally and linguistically diverse country on the planet. In Papua New Guinea, 852 distinct languages are spoken, and each of these communities have distinct ethnic groups with their own cultures and customs. With 600 islands and terrain that is geographically isolated by volcanoes and mountains, many communities have evolved in total isolation from each other and share few similarities. With the bulk of these communities thousands of years ago, the fact that traditional cultures and languages have survived colonization and other significant pressures such as modernization shows the huge resilience and tenacity of these communities. Second, it has several matrilineal communities. Though gender inequality is a widespread issue in Papua New Guinea, there are several communities that are matrilineal. This means that women are traditional custodians of land, which is in their communities is a huge value resource. Land titles are passed down from generation to generation via women, which is a form of social power that also endows women with higher status in society. The third one, it has one of the world's highest rate of violence against women. Outside of conflict zone, Papua New Guinea is estimated to have one of the highest rate of violence against women on earth. The Australian Federal Police have described gender-based violence as pandemic, which close to 70% of women having experienced violence from their partners or husband. According to MSF, 2/3 of those treated for partner violence were wounded with weapons such as knife, machetes, or blunt instrument, which indicates the severity of the abuse. EWDA works with several partners across the region to run safe houses, facilitated community awareness programs, and advocate to community leaders to enforce law to protect women's rights. The fourth one, rich in biodiversity, but mining and logging are putting this at risk. With so many islands involving in isolation for thousands of years, Papua New Guinea has an incredibly diverse array of flora, fauna, and natural resources. The matrilineal province of East Pomio, for example, is a home to an abundant agricultural economy that is the primary source of many livelihoods. But lands in East Pomio is also prime target for developers. Logging and seabed mining are slowly eroding natural resources, and despite their ancestral rights, women are being silenced and excluded from the decisions that impact on their life and communities. This affects the ability for communities to self-sustain and is particularly damaging to women, who are largely employed in this agriculture sector. And the last one, women are playing important roles in social change. Women in Papua New Guinea are hardworking, creative, resourceful, and resilient. In the face of deeply entrenched inequalities and often at huge personalities, EWDA's partner continue to work tirelessly to improve the life of women and girls through programs that address the prevention of violence against women and promoting and strengthening women's leadership and participation and improving access to resources and economic empowerment.
New Guinea, as it used to be known, is one of the first land masses after Africa and Eurasia to be populated by modern humans. Had its first migration at about the same time as Australia. Agriculture was independently developed in the New Guinea highlands around 7000 BC, making it one of the few areas of original plant domestication in the world. A major migration of Austronesia-speaking people came to their coastal regions at around roughly 2,500 years ago, along with the introduction of pottery, pigs, and certain fishing techniques. Some 300 years ago, the sweet potato entered New Guinea with its far higher crop yields, transforming traditional agriculture. It largely supplanted the previous staple, taro, and gave rise to a significant increase in population in the highlands. In the past, headhunting and cannibalism occurred in many parts of what is now named Papua New Guinea. By the early 1950s, through administration and mission pressures, open cannibalism had almost entirely ceased. A number of Portuguese and Spanish navigators sailing in the South Pacific in the early 16th century were probably the first Europeans to sight Papua New Guinea. Don Jorge de Menezes, a Portuguese explorer, is credited with the European discovery of the principal island of Papua New Guinea in around 1526 to 1527. Although European navigators visited and explored the New Guinea island for the next 170 years, they kept pretty much to themselves until the late 19th century. The northern half of Papua New Guinea came into German hands in 1884 as German New Guinea, with Europe's growing need for coconut oil. Godefroy of Hamburg, the latest trading firm in the Pacific, began trading for copra in the New Guinea islands. In 1884, Germany formally took possession of the northeast quarter of the island and put its administration in the hands of a chartered company. In 1899, the German imperial government assumed direct control of the territory. Thereafter known as German New Guinea, in 1914, Australian troops occupied German New Guinea, and it remained under Australian military control until 1921. The British government, on behalf of the Commonwealth of Australia, assumed a mandate from the League of Nations for governing the territory of New Guinea in 1920. The mandate was administered by the Australian government until the Japanese invasion in December 1941 brought about its suspension. During World War I, Papua New Guinea was occupied by Australia, which had begun administering British New Guinea. The southern part, as the renamed Papua in 1904 after World War I, Australia was given a mandate to administer the former German New Guinea by the League of Nations. Papua, by contrast, was deemed to be an external territory of the Australian Commonwealth, though as a matter of law it remained a British possession. The New Guinea campaign between 1942 and 1945 was one of the major military campaigns of World War II. Approximately 216,000 Japanese, Australian, and American soldiers, sailors, and airmen died during the New Guinea campaign. The two territories were combined into the territory of Papua New Guinea after World War II, which later was simply referred to as Papua New Guinea. The administration of Papua became open to the United Nations oversight. Elections in 1972 resulted in the formation of a ministry headed by Chief Minister Michael Somare. Papua New Guinea became self-governing on the 1st of December 1973 and achieved independence on 16 September of 1975. The 1977 national elections confirmed Michael Somare as prime minister at the head of a coalition led by the Pangu party. However, his government lost a vote of confidence in 1980 and was replaced by a new cabinet headed by Sir Julius Chan as prime minister. The Bougainville conflict. A 9-year secessionist revolt on the island of Bougainville claimed around 20,000 lives. The rebellion began in early 1989 over opposition to the world's largest open-cut copper mine, the Panguna mine. Active hostilities ended with a truce in October 1997 and a permanent ceasefire was signed in April 1998. A peace agreement between the government and ex-combatants was signed in August of 2001 on the condition that a referendum of Bougainville's political status would be held within 20 years. A referendum is scheduled to be held in June 2019.
Now I will explain several reasons why Papua New Guinea can be categorized as a small state. So the Commonwealth itself classifies Papua New Guinea as a small state, and as mentioned before in our previous video, there are two approaches that can be used to define a small state. The first one, quantitative, and the second one is qualitative. Quantitative can be seen from the size, demographic, or economic factor of the country, while qualitative can be looked at the country's relation with other states. In this video, we're going to mainly use the quantitative approach to know the smallness of Papua New Guinea, and the territorial size might not be suitable to define a small state, so we don't use it. Instead, we will look into the demographic and economic factors of Papua New Guinea. So, according to the latest data, Papua New Guinea's population is around 9 million people. Now, if we use the criteria by the Commonwealth, which noted that small states are states that have a population of 1.5 million people or less, Papua New Guinea might not be included as a small state. However, we cannot only look at the number of population, we also need to look at the demographic factors of the population. The country's rate of population growth tends to be high and life expectancy somewhat low. About 1/3 of the population is under 15 years of age. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the birth rate exceeded the world average. Meanwhile, the death rate was moderately high. Rapid population growth has created difficulties in providing basic health and education services. Unemployment and underemployment have also worsened the problems of poverty, crime, and ethnic tensions, especially in urban areas. Papua New Guinea still struggles to decrease the rate of poverty. Poverty in the country is influenced by education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Around 80% of Papua New Guinea's people live in rural areas. According to the World Bank, less than 40% of those people living in rural areas have electricity in their households, whether on or off the grid. In rural areas, there is also limited access to clean water and sanitation. The inability to receive adequate healthcare is another factor that helps to preserve poverty in Papua New Guinea. Medical facilities often lack resources such as equipment, vaccines, and even workers. The country has a population of around 9 million people, but they only have 500 doctors, less than 4,000 nurses, and 5,000 hospital beds. Papua New Guinea also has a rich amount of natural resources, such as fisheries, agriculture, mineral, oil, and gas deposits. The National Fisheries Authority puts annual catches of tuna at 150 billion to 200 billion tons per year, representing about 10% of the global catch, with potential resources at 250 billion to 300 billion tons per year. For agriculture, the country is known for its signature cash crops including coffee, palm oil, cocoa, coconut, copra, and, to a lesser degree, vanilla, tea, and rubber. The major mineral commodities produced in Papua New Guinea are silver, gold, and copper. Despite that, the government still faces challenges and difficulties to transform the resources into something valuable that will also improve the quality of life and livelihoods for all Papua New Guineans. The country's economy remains dominated by two broad sectors. The first one is the agricultural, forestry, and fishing sectors that engage most of Papua New Guinea's labor force. The second one is the minerals and energy extraction sector that accounts for most export earnings and GDP. However, because of the pandemic-related restrictions and weaker demand, Papua New Guinea's real GDP contracted by 3.8% in 2020. Like many other countries, the COVID-19 pandemic also worsens the condition in Papua New Guinea. As of the end of January 2021, Papua New Guinea had recorded more than 860 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 9 deaths. The pandemic caused the unemployment rate to increase, affecting the most vulnerable households, particularly women and youth. The country also lacks the inadequate training on use of personal protective equipment and infection prevention, and also control in handling the COVID-19 virus. Nurses across the country even threatened to strike a protest over the lack of basic medical supplies. On top of that, the government also needs to face political uncertainty and corruption issues. Political uncertainty, for instance, is the threat of no confidence vote and delays in approving the 2021 national budget. For the corruption issues, in May 2020, police arrested and charged former Prime Minister Peter O'Neill with misappropriation, corruption, and abuse of office. The charge related to the 2013 purchase of two generators from Israel for 50 million kina while O'Neill was the Prime Minister. It is alleged that O'Neill did the payments for purchase without the approval from the Parliament. The Corruption Perception Index also gave the country a score of 27 out of 100 for the year of 2020. The index means the lower the score, the higher the rate of corruption happens in the country. That puts Papua New Guinea's rank in 142 out of 180 countries. Small states also need to depend on bigger states, and this is true for Papua New Guinea, as they depend on countries such as Australia and China for assistance and aid in handling the COVID-19 pandemic. This will be explained further in the section of Papua New Guinea diplomacy. Before my friend explains the diplomacy of Papua New Guinea during the pandemic, I'll explain to you a little about what diplomacy is. We can simply define diplomacy as a method to influence the actions of other countries or foreign governments using peaceful tactics such as negotiations and dialogue. You may have been familiar of foreign ministries since it is one of the actors in diplomacy. But nowadays, the actors in diplomacy not only include foreign ministries, it also include intergovernmental organizations or IGOs such as the United Nations, international non-governmental organizations or INGOs such as Amnesty International, non-governmental organizations or NGOs such as Greenpeace Indonesia, and also business corporations. The range of issues in diplomacy also increased. Back then, the main focus was war and peace, but nowadays it includes trade, environment, development, social issues, and also health issues, which is the current pandemic that we are facing now. Although diplomacy usually involves the meetings between two or more government officials, like the foreign ministers, diplomacy can be in many forms. It can be student exchange, sport diplomacy, like through the previous Olympic Games, cultural diplomacy, and many more. Digital tools are also now being used more in diplomacy, affected by the pandemic, where on site meetings are still not that safe enough to do. For example, using Zoom conference for meetings or other social media apps.
Now, I will explain Papua New Guinea diplomacy during the pandemic. Papua New Guinea diplomation relation has a very close relationship with Australia. It can be seen from many cooperation from the two countries that have been carried out even before Papua New Guinea independence. The Indonesian government is wary of a spike in cases in Papua New Guinea and is temporarily closing the Indonesia-Papua New Guinea border. As the country battles what experts say is an exponential spike in coronavirus cases, fears of unexplained death have dire consequences, generally in countries in the Pacific Ocean. They still strongly believe in the existence of black magic, and their culture is also thick with black magic. This is a tradition that is basically passed down from generation to the generation, but has a dark side. Conspiracy, fraud, and rumors that exacerbate the COVID-19 emergency and causes many people to think is fake and become the biggest threat in Papua New Guinea. Australia has been vocal enough to continue helping the condition in Papua New Guinea. In the midst of the pandemic, with the difficulty of access, technology, and culture, they still believe that COVID is a black magic. Australia is helping by deploying several health workers and supplies needed for medical needs in Papua New Guinea. Even more, Australia also urged the international community to pay more attention and help Papua New Guinea in May 2021, when the COVID-19 in Papua New Guinea is at its highest. As we know, that China is intensively conducting a lot of diplomacy through financial assistance to countries in need. They call this as China financial trap, one of which happened in Papua New Guinea. In Papua New Guinea, China engaged in aggressive negotiation and diplomacy. When COVID-19 hit, when COVID-19 hit, every effort was made by China to help Papua New Guinea with medical assistance and injections of funds. This injection of funds is specifically for dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Many say China is seeking credit for smoothing its mission to outwit Papua New Guinea in the future. On the other hand, Australia does not want to lose out on its dominance and influence for Papua New Guinea. To be more aggressive from China, Australia invites Indonesia and New Zealand to help and pay attention to COVID-19 in Papua New Guinea, and also urge World Health Organization to immediately send 1 million vaccine to Papua New Guinea when COVID is at its highest in Papua New Guinea. So it's around May, April.